Is he gone, Frank? I mean, is he gone?
I don't want to bullshit you, Ken. I think he went. I think he's gone.
When Jesse told me that that was going to happen, I wasn't terribly surprised. I thought it made sense dramaturgically. And then when I read the script, I found it shocking and emotionally devastating.
We didn't really have a death scene for Logan, and that was obviously intentional. We wanted to capture a feeling of death that people experience in the modern era of separation, of communication over phone and email.
These things happen in all our lives, with our parents or anyone you love, anybody in your life, and something happens and they're just gone. I think it's going to have an extraordinary impact.
We were sort of told ahead of time before we got the script what episode 3 was going to be about, but the way that it starts out for Roman with the disappointment that Dad's probably actually not going to go to his son's wedding.
Are you gonna make it at all?
We got him some,
Combined with having to have that conversation with Jerry, I feel like professionally it's the worst day of his life, and personally it's one of the worst days of his life too.
What's going on, Roman?
He has no idea how much worse it's about to get.
Your dad is very sick. He's very, very sick.
What?
Being in that frame of mind for 2 weeks at a time is not healthy.
To some extent, this is just, my job, and I'm trying to keep the emotional stakes up and put the character through that, and then go home. But the problem with that is going home, yeah, that was Roman going through that, but physically, I actually had to go through that, so I was sort of, it's this weird disconnect of like feeling physically like I've gone through some sort of emotional trauma, but I haven't.
I found it was better for me to pull out of it completely so that it could be fresh still, because like for me, staying in means that it dulls and it's not good.
You are trying to live with and embody the death of a parent. It was hard. One of the things about this show, time and time again, I'll be given something that I think this is the limit of what I'm capable of as an actor. Here's my wall. And then you have no choice but to go through that. And this episode was one of those. Khan.
Would you take care of that for
Khan,
us? Yeah.
it's serious. Come here.
I was taught a long time ago that you just have to accept the fact that your performance is going to come from all the other characters around you. If you're just open to what is going on.
They think he's dead.
And when Sarah came in to tell me, and Sarah was a puddle, that it was just like game over. You don't have to act.
Shooting the episode, honestly, it was quite exciting because it felt high risk.
It felt like the most exciting episode we'd shot because it moves in real time.
From that phone call to the end, things have to become an emergency.
In the planning of the shots, it felt to me like the camera had to be almost sadistically voyeuristic. It had to stay really close without kind of taking its eye off them, because every time we cut away from the siblings, it seemed to let them off the hook. So we worked on this idea of how could we keep the action as fluid as possible so it's unflinching.
Mylod tried to credit me with this, but I think he was trying to be generous. It was his idea.
Kieran and I had spoken about it. I think actually it might have been Kieran's idea. And we thought, what if we actually ran that whole sequence as one once we've done everything else?
And so when we came in to shoot, I asked, are we still doing that? And he went, oh, good idea. Oh, good. To try to make it seem like it was my idea. Very nice guy. But that is what we ended up doing. We shot like 5 or 6 days of the sequence bits, and then we ran the whole thing. As it turns out, it's like a 27-minute long scene.
It was like a 28-page scene, I think, which is very, very, very long. On a movie, you'll shoot like a 2-page scene in a day.
And we shoot on film, so that meant
we can only shoot for 10 minutes, and then the camera needs to be physically reloaded with the new roll of film. So the camera operators worked on this idea of basically hiding rolls of film around the set and hiding a third camera body, doing super fast reloads so that one camera would always be running so they wouldn't have to reload at the same time.
It was us doing like a 1-act play on a boat in several rooms with background actors, with lighting everywhere with 3 cameras, and it was unlike anything I'd ever done before, and it was extremely exciting. We just did the one.
And I think a massive percentage of that ended up being in the final cut.
I think today's the day. Suddenly, episode 3, he's gone. And when you've removed that one element, you're going, well, where's the conflict?
The idea of it not happening at the end of the season, but happening in an early or mid-season episode. You take all the places you'd expect such a kind of humongous event and play the exact opposite of that. And I thought that was just a brilliant, brilliant idea.
There's a couple of sort of factors that play into where Logan's death falls in our narrative trajectory. One is a sort of base one of like, oh, maybe it'll surprise people.
Oh, man.
You know, I am not immune to such thoughts of wanting to keep the show exciting and fresh. I think much more prominent was the feeling that if we're going to do this, we don't just want to see people crying and then have a funeral and be done with the show. We want to see how a death of someone significant rebounds around a family.
The sheer heft of that character and his presence, one can't help but associate that with Brian and his presence on set, and as such a huge gravitational force around which our creative work over the past few years has spun.
When you're playing a part that is removed in that way, yeah, it has an effect on you. You feel, hang on, this is one of the greatest pieces of work I've ever been involved in, and suddenly it's no more. But it's also, it reflects what our existence is about, because we're here for a time and then we're gone.
I was very nervous to tell him, you know, because there's lots of anxieties about whether it's the right creative decision, and there's anxieties that someone who I love working with and has been at the center of the show will feel rejected on a human level for not being in it anymore when he's been so central to the whole thing.
Here's to us. When you work with the genius of somebody like Jesse, it's always sad when that comes to an end. There's no question about it, because you've had such great respect. We're out of here.
He took it like a total pro, and he was professional and decent and kind and enough to make it, yeah, a pretty good meeting, but a sad and significant one.
It's going to be hard when the public see that he's gone in episode 3. I think they're going to find it tough, because they've lived with Logan for so long, so they're going to miss him.